Before we get going on today's program, quick reminder, we'll be live for the Texans' final preseason matchup on Saturday up against the Detroit Lions. Kickoff is going to be at noon. We'll be live an hour before at 11 a.m. Central Time. So be there or be square. We'll have a fun giveaway. We're doing play-by-play, and we have the most fun out of any Texans channel out there during our live watch parties. So if that interests you, make sure to go down, hit that subscribe button, and join us on Saturday for our final preseason watch party as we get ready for the regular season. Coming up on today's program, I'm going to take a look at how the latest NFL trade news could impact your Houston Texans. And I know a lot of y'all are probably shaking your head right now saying, Jeremy, what are you talking about? Texans already traded somebody away. They already traded away John Mechie. Are you telling me there could be another trade on the horizon? Well, maybe. This report from Diana Rossini said the Jets are among several teams monitoring the trade market for a potential wide receiver addition. Per sources, the 49ers and Vikings are also making calls. And as I mentioned, Texans already dealt a wide receiver this offseason. They traded John Mechie to the Philadelphia Eagles in return for Harrison Bryant and a pick swap. But as I look at this Texans depth chart, I got to thinking, if another team is desperate enough to look for a wide receiver, if another team is, trying to add somebody else, could the Texans potentially move on from another receiver? I know we've talked about maybe the Texans keeping 7 wide receivers on their roster, but what if they don't? What if they only keep 6 guys on this squad heading into the regular season? So I'm going to ask you this question, then I'll give you my answer after the YouTube ad break. Could the Texans trade another wide receiver before the start of the regular season? Give me a yes, give me a no. Give me your thoughts down below in the comments section. I'll tell you what I'm thinking in just one moment. All right. I think the Texans possibly could. And I think there's 2 options if this team is keeping 6 wide receivers. I know maybe not as big of a trade chip as a John Mechie, but still, I think the Texans maybe could get a 7th-round pick if a team is desperate for a wide receiver, if they're looking at somebody maybe like a Justin Watson, who maybe could be the odd man out, even after having a pretty good training camp and a couple preseason performances. Justin Watson, maybe. Or I think a sneaky trade chip could be Braxton Berrios. He's looked really good in the preseason. And what if Jalen Knoll, the rookie out of Iowa State, is named the punt returner? He had a great return in the Texans' second preseason matchup. What if they're like, hey, we don't need Berrios to be a return man. We have Jalen Knoll, and he becomes dispensable. Teams could definitely look at a return man / serviceable wide receiver 4 or 5 on a roster like a Braxton Berrios. And you're probably thinking, Jeremy, this is kind of crazy. What teams are going to trade for a Justin Watson or Braxton Berrios? And I think, the chances of those guys are slim to none. But I thought, let's have a little bit of fun on today's show. So coming up, I have 3 Texans that I think could also be traded this offseason before the start of the regular season. 3 guys who maybe don't fit the Texans' future plans for this season and moving forward. Before I get into those 3 guys, today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. I've had so much fun playing Prize Picks. I remember my bachelor party, I went out to Las Vegas. And I actually went to what I thought was, the last Pac-12 championship game ever, whenever it was Oregon up against Washington. It was Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and I had a blast. And you know what made it even that much more fun? I won some money while watching the game by playing my favorite daily fantasy sports app, and that is Prize Picks. You can have fun as well as football is underway and college football, it's here, baby. So don't miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. Football season, it is so back. Get started with the #1 daily fantasy sports app out there where you can turn your football knowledge into cold, hard cash, and it's as easy as playing 2 to 6 player stat projections and watching the winnings roll in. And for the season, I actually had season-long projections for the Houston Texans, and I actually think maybe it could interest you. Before I get into that, though, have a great... Oh, here it is. Oh, yeah, that was right. Here we go. Here's my season-long projections. Shout out to producer Casey finding it on the fly. But obviously, the projections have changed a little bit. I made these, I believe, maybe a month and a half ago, but it still stands. I still am standing on these projections. This is my lineup for the season. CJ Stroud, give me the more on his passing yards. Joe Mixon, give me the more on his rush yards. Nico Collins, give me the more on his receiving yards. You see a trend here? I think the Texans offense will be pretty dang good. And then just to be a hater, and you can't just have one team. You have to throw in another team. I'm going to be a hater and put Trevor Lawrence the less on his passing touchdowns. And then also, you can add in this max discount for Dak Prescott. All he has to do, week 1, throw more than a half a passing yard. Yeah, I think that's pretty doable. So basically, they're handing out free money with this amazing deal. So get started with our friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Get started with our friends over at Prize Picks. Run your game. Get started with my favorite daily fantasy sports app out there. All right, here we go. Coming up, 3 Texans that I think could be traded. And I want to let y'all know from the get before I show you these names. This isn't me hating on these guys. If I'm listing somebody as a possible trade candidate, that means I think they have value. I think they're really good. Maybe they don't fit the Texans' plans moving forward into the future, but if I'm listing somebody as a trade candidate, that means other teams are interested in them. So I think these guys, maybe other teams could be interested in, and the Texans don't necessarily have to have them for this season to be successful. Let's look at the first name, and it's somebody who just returned to training camp, really, in Dameon Pierce. Entering the final year of his rookie deal, Dameon Pierce, he's had a roller coaster ride with the Houston Texans so far, to say the least. Great rookie campaign out of Florida. Looked fantastic. Second year with the first year under Bobby Slowick, not as good, right? It was splitting carries. Ended up getting overtaken on the depth chart by Devin Singletary. Last year with Joe Mixon, really was not really a big factor. 40 carries, 293 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And 92 of those yards came on a run up against the New England Patriots. So, I mean, Dameon Pierce, like I said, I don't know if he really fits the future plans for the Houston Texans. And with teams out there possibly looking for running backs, we've seen the Commanders put Brian Robinson Jr. out there on the trade market. Maybe it seems like, we don't want to spend any high draft capital on a running back. Would the Texans be willing to part ways with Pierce for a 6th, maybe a 7th round pick and just say, hey, we're going to run with Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, Agumbawale, and the rookie Woody Marks? I think that's definitely a possibility and why I have him as my first Texan that could be traded going into roster cutdown day. Let's look at number 2, Christian Harris. And this one's going to be divisive. Because after returning from injury, coming back to training camp, Christian Harris has been getting a lot of run with the ones. He's been looking really good. And the Texans, I think they have a surplus at linebacker. They have, Henry To'o, Azeez Al-Shire, obviously, who I think is the best linebacker on this team. You brought in E.J. Speed. You also brought in Nick Neiman. You brought back Jake Hansen. Also, second-year linebacker out of Oregon, Jamal Hill's looking pretty good. And call me crazy, but the Texans, they put John Mechie in preseason games and let him play for a while. Do I think maybe they were putting out like a little bit of a teaser to other teams saying, hey, look at what Mechie can do. Look how good he's doing. I don't believe into the conspiracy of the whole one-on-one rep with Derek Stingley Jr. whatsoever. But maybe the Texans are trying to showcase Christian Harris, who's also on the last year of a rookie contract, and saying, hey, if a team needs a linebacker, Christian Harris, I think, could be a serviceable one. And maybe somebody who the Texans look to trade, move on from before the start of the season. Because like I said, Christian Harris, I think he's good. This isn't me saying I think Christian Harris is bad. I just think the Texans don't necessarily need him to start this season. Lastly, Denico Autry, defensive end. And this is a big what if. Because currently, Denico Autry hasn't practiced, hasn't really played at all during training camp. I mean, he hasn't played at all during training camp preseason action because he's nursing a knee injury. last year was suspended for half the year. Second half of the year, I thought played good. Into the playoffs, during the playoffs, I thought Denico Autry played very well. 3 sacks during the regular season last year, 3 tackles for loss for Autry. And Texans could save some money if they move on from Autry. Multiple teams will be looking for defensive line help. If he can pass a physical, maybe the Texans say, hey, do we need Autry? The defensive line's stacked. The starters, Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, they look amazing. The backups, Derek Barnett, Darrell Taylor, they look awesome. I don't know if you need Denico Autry. And with the, ascension of second-year man Solomon Byrd, the 7th-round pick out of USC, he's looked so good during the preseason, during training camp. I wonder if a guy like Denico Autry becomes dispensable for this team. If they're like, hey, kind of like I said with the linebacking room, we're so good at defensive line, maybe we get some extra draft capital for a guy like Denico Autry who may or may not get cut from this team. I think at the end of the day, they'll probably place Denico Autry on like short-term IR or maybe start him out like on the injured list to start the year. But maybe if a team is desperate enough to throw you a 4th-round pick for Denico Autry, if somebody desperately needs defensive line help, a good veteran pass rusher, I don't know. Nick Caserio, I know this. His phone, always available if teams are calling. He's never going to turn down a trade call. He's always got the lines open if anybody is willing to make a deal. I think Nick Caserio might be willing to make some deals before the start of the regular season. Now, let me know down in the comment section. Do you hate my trade ideas or do you think they have some validity behind them? Let me know what you're thinking down below. And as always, if you want to talk Texans football, let me know what I did right, what I did wrong in today's video. You can hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chugs. My DMs are open. And if you made it to the end of today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us for preseason game number 3. Texans, Lions, be there or be square an hour before kickoff. Make sure to subscribe and join us for that game.